Hi, everyone. It's Morgan, digital content lead at Shannon Strategies, and we are back today with another episode of What's Going On with Your Comms. And I am joined by Dejah, our wonderful graphic designer. Say hi, Dejah.
Hello.
And today we wanted to tackle a topic that both Dejah and I deal with a lot in our work, which is stock photography and diversity in stock photography. So this topic we talk about a lot when we're trying to find photos and things, but it more recently came up because the NC State University did a study on lack of diversity in stock photography, specifically in health professions and health topics. And they found that a majority of images lack diversity when it comes to race and age. And it makes it very difficult for folks to create communications materials that essentially contain a range of individuals who are affected by the topics that the materials are about. So
Right.
that is something that we talk a lot about because quite often when we're creating things for clients, we are trying to find diverse images. So we're trying to find images of folks who are non-Christian, who may be Muslim or wear hijab, folks who are African American or Latino or Asian. Those are photos that we struggle a lot with finding, and even in campaigns that we've done surrounding Medicaid and Medicare, finding folks who are older individuals, because a lot of the stock photos that you see are younger, in their 20s, 30s, sort of an ambiguous age range. You don't see a lot of folks who are above 50 or above 60. And so that's something that we've, found difficulty with. And for me, working in social media and digital marketing and running ads as well, because that's something that we do here at Shannon Strategies. Diversity in photography is so important because it needs to be representative of the audience you're marketing to.
Yes.
So when we're trying to inform people about a new health benefit or a policy that we're advocating for, finding individuals who look like the policy that's going into effect are being affected by it, or who are being affected by the health benefit that we're advocating for or advertising for. That's so vital because they need to be able to see themselves in what is going online. So for me personally, I've had to seek out sites that specialize in diverse photography. So one of those is nappy.co, which is something that
Yes.
I often recommend to folks. And it is a site that specializes in images about, on Black and Brown folks. And I've found that pretty helpful. But also, we at Shannon Strategies want to advocate for more diverse photography, stock photography, seeing individuals with disabilities in stock photography, or like I said, older individuals, LGBTQ plus couples. That's something that we also struggle with finding in stock photography. So, you know, you typically have to provide so many parameters when you're
Right.
searching. You have to search for,
You have
you
to be
know,
very specific and say like uh images of Black people doing X, Y, and Z, or images of this type of person doing X, Y, and Z. You have to be very specific in order to populate those images because usually it's going to give me like middle age, honestly white people, or people who are not people of color. So it really makes it hard, especially with the clients that we have, to actually find images that suit their cause and suit like their target audience because even applications like Canva have very like they try, like when I look at them, they try, and I've used some of them, but it's not enough. And I end up seeing like the same images, or they're also not as professionally done. They might not be as nice as other images. They might not be staged very well as other images of other types of people. So then we have to go through, okay, the quality of these stock photos too aren't the best as some other ones or the majority that we see. And I think it definitely does make it hard to speak to certain audiences when you don't have the imagery to do so.
What is your do you have any, I guess, tips or tricks about sort of getting around that? Or what does your process look like when you just really cannot find that type of photo? Because we often don't have, hours on end to find the
Hmm.
perfect stock photo
Right.
to use in something. It can really eat up our time. And unfortunately, it's just not, where it needs to be right now. So what typically is your workaround for something like that?
Depending on what the message is in the whatever I'm designing, whatever the message is, sometimes you can use different types of imagery that's not of people. You can use maybe imagery of laptops or technology or environment type of images. So you sometimes like when it gets a little difficult and I'm like, okay, like an image of a person may be the best to like add that humanity to it, but also like if I can't find anything, then I might have to switch to using like something without like actual people in them. But then it can get tricky too once you're like, because they'll have like hands and things in there that are all still like um not the most diverse. So yeah, typically I'll just use other types of images.
I think that's also why we often heavily recommend or heavily push our clients to take their own photos, especially
Right.
at events and when they're together as a team, just because, we always, for me, when I'm looking at analytics and just knowing what the data looks like, images and graphics with people on social media just perform better. Like everybody
Hmm.
loves the face, like you said, it humanizes the subject, it makes it more approachable. And so, we can have a workaround where we're using an image that may not necessarily involve people, but that's definitely not, the optimal thing that we always want to do. And so that's
Right.
why we always encourage our clients to take as many photos as they can when they're out and about, so that we have images to choose from that, have that diversity because it's of real people. And,
Right.
some photos are of real people, but unfortunately they're staged.
Yeah. And I think it also um becomes an issue too, like when we're just reading up on things, like the imagery that we see with certain articles or with even the article that you shared today, like the imagery was diverse, but I feel like it wasn't, I feel like it was an image that was also heavily like had to be searched for. You know what I'm saying? Like just that imagery that we used on or that we seen on that article. So even like looking up like or reading on certain things and you still don't have the imagery to relate to it or to add to what you're saying, it becomes an issue when we're to spread that message because you don't have anything to really go with it.
Something else that we want to talk about when it comes to diversity in stock images is what it means to have diversity in stock images. So a lot of people, when you hear, use diverse stock images, they think if I use an image with a black person in it or a brown person in
Hmm.
it, that's diverse, like that's covering it. But really, diversity in stock images covers an entire range of identities and an entire range of individuals. So when you type in the word families on Canva, instead of just having
Hmm.
families that are, a nuclear family, it's a mother and a father and three children, you have LGBTQ families and you have, you know, single parent families and you have
Hmm.
things like that that are more representative of how diverse families are in the real world. And,
Right.
when we type in a certain occupation, you want to see, like when you type in doctor, instead of just seeing white male doctors, you want to see
Hmm.
female doctors, you want to see doctors of different religions, doctors who are Muslim
Right.
or doctors who are brown doctors. I mean, that's something that you want to see when you type in the word doctors. Unfortunately, a
Right.
lot of those terms default to white individuals, to cis individuals, and you have to, like, you mentioned you have to type in those sort of qualifiers, which is really
Hmm.
unfortunate, but that's, when you're looking for diversity, it really is an entire range of identities. It's not just racial diversity, which is definitely still a part of it. But we want to see even more diversity outside of that.
Right. I did find one image the other day that was very interesting when I was making a design, and it did have a person who was in a wheelchair in a circle, discussion circle, um, which I which I took note of, but that's only because I don't see it often. And then I took note of that, like, oh, I actually don't see that too often. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's a really good thing that that person was in, because it's a regular discussion group or just imagery of people like talking and on their computer. So it's like, of course, like anybody could be doing that. Um, but it made me like think about like how often I actually see um different abled people in those types of imagery as well. And that's something that we really don't think about, or we don't think about unless it's super close to us, I guess, when we're looking for those types of images. So as people who create graphics and create content and create digital media, like we also have to, we're really intentional about, you know, incorporating all types of people or imageries in these designs.
But it's unfortunate that we have to be so like intentional about this act that it's not something like you said you made note of the fact that that was
Hmm.
different for you. And that's something that I probably would have made note of and thought, oh
Right.
wow, I never see that. And so I'd like it to get to a point where it's normal to see those things.
Yeah. Well, we could
The
just search on Google.
Right. When you type in, families on Canva or Pexel or wherever you're searching for stock images, you get an immediate huge diversity of individuals and, different types of folks in those photos. So
Right.
hopefully we get to that point. That's something that we want to push for and advocate for, but unfortunately we're not there yet. So there are some workarounds, taking your own photos and having a graphic designer and a communications team that's intentional about choosing those photos and ensuring that your imagery on your websites or your social media match your audience,
Right.
match the folks who are part of your audience. So yeah, that's a topic that's important to us and something that we hopefully want to remind you about. If you work in communications, or even if you don't, if you're an organization that puts out communications materials on any platform, whether it's print or digital, just keeping in mind that your images should be reflective of your audience. And your audience is more diverse than you think, I'm quite
Right.
sure.
Right.
Keeping that in mind when you're making those things. And if you need help with that, you can hire us here at Shannon Strategies. We are experts at doing that, and we are very intentional about doing that and having that as part of our practice. So
Yep.
you can check us out at shannonstrategies.com, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.